G'day. Today we're going to be talking about horror icons. Horror icons may be of any kind, slashers, psychological, but at the end of the day it has to be something that makes you sort of question if that was a shadow in the dark or not. Sometimes the things that scare us most are completely psychological. Other times it just might be the brutality or the finality of something that just brings death. For me, this series that I'm going to be talking about can be with cheesy horror, but it still has to have something in the back of your mind that will make you find it a little scary. Today we're going to be talking about something that is close to my heart, and that is because it is one of the few films that I'm going to be doing on this list that legitimately scared me, and that is Candyman. Now, what's the easiest way to scare somebody? Is it with a story, maybe? Because that's what Candyman is. It's a story about an urban legend, and like so many urban legends, many people believe them for a bit. But, you know, what happens at the end of an urban legend story? Like whether it's the hook on the window, or if it's the bloodstains on the wall. Well, ultimately, you have to try and find out for yourself whether or not the urban legend is real. And sometimes, that's where the real problems come in.
So let's talk about the Candyman. Like most urban legends, there are some variations to this story, but for the most part, these are the solid facts surrounding the mysterious phantom. Daniel Robitaille was the son of a slave in New Orleans. His father would eventually help develop a system for mass production of shoes during the Civil War, and due to this, his son Daniel was brought up in high society and educated. Daniel was a very gifted artist, and it was for this reason that a wealthy patron came forth, commissioning him to paint a portrait of his daughter Carolyn Sullivan. It was during this time that Daniel was enraptured by the beauty of Carolyn, and the two fell in love, making love in secret due to how the relationship would be viewed at the time. This steamy relationship was destined for tragedy when Carolyn became pregnant and Daniel was found to be the father. Daniel Robitaille was captured by a racist mob and beaten severely. Both his mind and body were tortured, and his right hand was sawed off with a dirty and rusted saw. While this was happening, a member of the mob lathered Daniel's prone body in honey, stolen from an angry beehive. A young child came forth and tasted the sweet honey, and called Daniel Candyman, causing a chain of chants and laughter from the mocking mob of Candyman, 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 over and over. The people had forgotten about the bees, however, and the bees, now riled up from the theft of their honey, stung Daniel continuously and aggressively. Carolyn had run from her home immediately upon hearing this news of this mob's actions, but alas, she was too late and arrived just as most of the bees had finished stinging Daniel. Carolyn's father then took the mirror and held it to Daniel's face, showing Daniel just how he looked, and taunted him further. Daniel gasped the words, "Man," died. Daniel Robitaille was dead, and the saddened, hateful Candyman was born. Carolyn would take this mirror and hide it in the slave house where Daniel was born, and also give birth to Isabel, the baby of hers and Daniel's. So why should you be afraid of the Candyman? Now a spirit, Candyman has the ability to be called by victims. If you say Candyman 5 times in the mirror in one viewing, then you will summon him. He will gut you with a rusted hook in place of his severed right hand, and to try and escape the Candyman is futile, as he has the ability to cause mental blackouts and make you act against your will. By summoning him, you have sealed your own death. In fact, the only people who have defeated the Candyman were those who he held dear or hoped to join him in his legend. He allowed them to act mainly of their own free will and hopefully make their own choice to join him, but unfortunately for he, and luckily for our victims, none chose to become his victim, and thus freedom was theirs to defeat him. So, who are these victims? What are these accounts? Well, let's start with the first movie, Candyman. Helen Lyle was researching urban legends and learned about a local legend in the Cabrini Green housing project of Chicago, Illinois. She said his name 5 times in a mirror jokingly and laughed when nothing happened. Upon further research was when she found all of this artwork and the rumors around the Candyman, and even visited the gang-ridden area's homes, and was found his legend. In a terrible sequence of events, she was beaten down by a gang whose leader claimed to be the Candyman himself. He was arrested after she identified him at a police station, and everyone finally put the Candyman legend to rest. Except for Candyman himself.
Helen.
He visited Helen and explained his predicament. You see, Candyman as a spirit can only exist if his legend lives on. Rumors and urban legend fuel him, and at the moment, due to the arrest and Helen's research, almost everyone had stopped believing in him. After doing many things to try and paint Helen in a diabolical light, such as kidnapping a baby, killing animals, and even murder, Helen was committed to a mental hospital, subject to more of Candyman's psychological terror. Candyman allowed her to escape and find out that her husband had been cheating on her just to fuel her madness, and then asked her to become his victim, sacrificing herself by choosing to die at Candyman's hand to fuel his legend once more. Helen found that the kidnapped baby was actually hidden in a community bonfire that was lit, and chose to defy the Candyman to save the baby, although horrifically burning to death in the process. Candyman was left in the bonfire and burned and dispersed, but the terror was not over there. In the sequel, Candyman Farewell to the Flesh, Annie Tarrant's father was murdered in what was described as a Candyman-esque style by Professor Philip Purcell, and his brother was accused of the murder, and the rumour harmed the family's reputation. Annie was teaching at a school in New Orleans when she was forced to disprove the Candyman's existence to her students by chanting Candyman 5 times into the mirror. Later, her husband Paul McKeever was murdered by the Candyman, but not her for reasons she was unaware of at the time. Later, Annie would come to understand that she was the great-great-granddaughter of Carolyn Sullivan, making her Daniel Robitaille's descendant. Candyman would haunt Annie, and Annie returned home to find that her mother and the rest of her family had been purposefully denying any connection to Daniel Robitaille, and chose to write him out of their history. Candyman then killed her mother and asked Annie to become his victim. Annie's quest led her to recount her father's last days, searching for the mirror that Carolyn held onto during Daniel Robitaille's last day, and the very mirror which he had breathed his last looking into. Annie would find this mirror and destroy it, severely weakening and preventing Candyman from taking her life. Until Candyman III, Day of the Dead. Annie Tarrant didn't know at the time, but she was actually pregnant with her husband Paul McKeever's child, and she gave birth to a daughter who she named Carolyn McKeever. McKeever after Paul's last name, and Carolyn being named after her great-great-great-grandmother, hopefully easing Candyman's tortured soul, knowing that their love lived on through his family. Annie would eventually be killed by the Candyman, however, and Carolyn refused to acknowledge the Candyman rumors as true. Many years later, Carolyn would host an art gallery filled with Daniel Robitaille's art. It attracted the wrong crowd, however, with everyone only interested in the Candyman legend. Carolyn was eventually led into saying Candyman 5 times in a mirror, and thus once again the Candyman was summoned. Candyman's motives this time, however, were to end his family line with Carolyn so that they could go to the afterlife together. Haunting Caroline and killing those around her, Candyman hoped to give her nothing to live for, and thus choose to join him. Carolyn was aided by a spiritually aware woman and told her that Candyman couldn't be vengeful unless he was once a good person, for without good, there can be no evil. Candyman's love for his partner and the sadness that they could never be together is what caused him to be a vengeful and hateful spirit. The old lady told Carolyn that she needed to destroy the painting of Daniel Robitaille, because this was a painting representing his past self, and once he let go of his past, there would be no need for vengeance anymore. With this painting destroyed, Candyman's soul was no longer anchored to this world, and he was finally destroyed. A corrupt police officer named Samuel Deacon Kraft, who had been tailing Carolyn McKeever, decided to then attempt to kill her with a hook, but was shot by another police officer, saving her. Carolyn then said that the real Candyman was actually Samuel Deacon Kraft, and that he was the one behind all the killings. The police had a massive conference saying that Samuel Deacon Kraft was behind all the Candyman rumors, and people everywhere forgot all about Daniel Robitaille, and instead thought it was all just a rumor started by the corrupt Officer Samuel, the Candyman was finally laid to rest. The Candyman has at least 24 kills to his name, making him quite a prolific murderer. Despite all of this, what are my final thoughts on the Candyman? Well, it's strange, but I can actually feel sorry for this being known as Candyman. In quite a few moments you can really feel his emotional torment, and it's his love that let him continue existing after all.
You're alive. You're alive. Do not forsake me.
This, however, cannot justify his actions, and many innocent people have died to this spectre. And I feel that the Candyman is scary because you have to summon him to get his attention. Like, you could go your entire life knowing the legend and not doing anything about it, and you would be fine. It's only when someone takes that gamble to finally see whether or not he exists that the gamble does not pay off well, and indeed, you will die. Worse still is that you must sate the curiosity of your mates, for if anyone in a single group of people tries to summon him, they accidentally damn the whole group, as Candyman may kill them just to terrify his victim further, or to increase his own legend. The fact that it's curiosity that kills you, and once invoked there is no escape, that is what truly makes the Candyman terrifying, and in my eyes, that makes him a horror icon.
My victim.
You see, the Candyman myth is scary for all the reasons that modern myths and urban legends are scary today, and that's because it's hinted in just enough of reality to make you question. Now, I'm sure many people left those movies and did not dare say his name 5 times in the mirror, and so that's what I'm here to do right now, to prove once and for all that it's not a real thing, it's just a movie, right? You know what, on a second thought, maybe I'll try it another day.